And welcome back to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, publisher of Daily Thunder. I'll be your host today. Alongside me is Daily Thunder beat writer Brandon Ribar. Brandon, how are you this week, the day after the devastating loss in the NBA Cup championship?
I'm bummed about the NBA Cup championship, but you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't even count in the standings, so it's all good.
Yeah, the team lost last night against the Milwaukee Bucks, and interestingly, head into Thursday's game against the Orlando Magic, still on a 5-game win streak. In the game, the Thunder shot a putrid 5 of 32 from 3, which was good for just 16%, but their season average didn't change. Shea only scored 21 points, well below his scoring average, but his scoring average for the season, which is currently third in the NBA, wasn't impacted. So, yeah, Oklahoma City lost a pretty hugely hyped scrimmage last night more than anything. They lost it in ugly fashion, but in the world of statistics and standings, doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you summed it up perfectly. I mean, it's kind of funny because there was so much excitement going into the game last night, and for good reason. You know, the NBA Cup, you know, it's a fun thing that the NBA has added, and it's so hard to win an NBA championship. It's kind of like something extra to go for. And I think the Thunder played so well leading up to the championship game. Like, I think there should be a lot of weight given to the fact that they beat the Rockets and the Mavs, two teams in the West that they may play in the playoffs that have been playing really good and really hot. They beat both those teams by double-digit points, by 14 and 15 points. Like, that should not be forgotten. But ultimately, the championship would have been nice. It would have been fun to see, you know, SGA and J-Dub and Hartenstein hoist the NBA Cup. Would have been really fun. But ultimately, it was a one-game sample size against a team that the Thunder, you know, had some issues with last year as well. I think they present some matchup issues when the Thunder don't have Chet Holmgren, particularly and especially. And the Thunder just could not buy a bucket. I mean, the shooting, I know there's shooting variance, and then there's shooting variance. And last night was a big shooting variance game last night.
Well, before we get too deep in the weeds, you mentioned the really nice win against the Rockets, so let's start there. On Saturday, the team matched up against the Rockets in the semifinals of the NBA Cup. Oklahoma City is going to play 5 games against the Rockets now because of that matchup. The Houston team has been really among the better teams in the West so far. And in that first matchup, the Thunder really did truly outclass the Rockets at home. In the second game, you had Fred VanVleet went nuclear, and Houston ended up edging Oklahoma City and protecting their home court. But here in this third matchup, with something bigger at stake and a game that does count in the standings, that does have statistical meaning, there was also, you know, the potential of a cup championship and at least $200,000, if not $500,000 for every player on a full contract. The Thunder ended up pulling that one out. But the first half was a slog. I guess kind of like the game against the Bucks, there was a lid on the basket, but this one was for both teams. Houston shot just 31% from the field and 21% from 3 in the first half. Oklahoma City was 33% from the field and an even worse 11% from 3, just 2 of 18. First half thoughts?
Yeah, the first half was pretty rough. I mean, I think it was two really great defenses, the number 1 and number 2 defense. I think it was some of it, you know, shots weren't falling. But, you know, and I do think that I don't want to skip ahead and go back to that Bucks game, but I think that because the 2 first halves of those games were so similar, I think that's why so many people thought, okay, well, the Thunder are going to turn it on in the second half like they did against the Rockets. But yeah, the first half, you know, I think it was just 2 teams that play high-intensity defense, but the Thunder's talent just shone through in that second half.
Yeah, and you seeing how the first half played out, I think you already kind of previewed what you were thinking at halftime of the Bucks game. But because OKC started out shooting so poorly, sitting in your shoes at halftime, what were you expecting in the second half versus how things played out?
I thought coming into the game that the Thunder were the more talented, better team, and that, the Rockets do play great defense, but the Thunder has so much more offensive talent than the Rockets do, and they have a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which the Rockets don't have. And we've seen, Shai struggles in a half that rarely carries over to a second half. He usually finds a way to put points on the board, and that's what he did in the second half. I expected that to happen, and that did happen. Now, I didn't expect, the Thunder to go from scoring 41 points in the first half to scoring 70 points in the second half. That surprised even me. I expected things to get easier and for shots to start falling and for SGA, to pick it up. He did, but 70 points. It was just kind of an offensive explosion in the second half. And the Rockets, they just don't have the offensive talent that the Thunder do, and their best offensive players aren't great defensive players. That's the big difference. Besides SGA, like the Thunder have a top 5 player in the world, and the Rockets don't have that one superstar they can depend on. I think, the bigger difference is they have so many one-way players, guys that are great on defense but can't play any offense, or guys that are great offensively that can't play defensively. And that's what I think really separates these two teams.
Well, and I noticed that the pace of play was a lot different in the first half versus the second. The first half was a lot more half court. The pace was very slow, I think, by Oklahoma City standards. And it seemed like it was intentional in the second half to really push the pace and playing with a little more urgency. Because even if it's fast break points or transition buckets, when the Thunder play faster, it usually results in a better outcome because they protect the ball really well, but they're alternatively really good at forcing steals. And when the pace picks up, other teams really struggle to keep up with that and to protect the ball. And to me, that really opened up the offense, and that demonstrated in the shooting percentages. Also, I think Shai started to find himself a lot more in the second half because there was that huge disparity. You mentioned the point disparity, first half versus second, but also the shooting. Oklahoma City shot 58% from the field and 75% from three in the second half, including 4 for 4 for Dort. Dort might have kind of been the MVP of that game. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, he scored 19 points. He was, like you said, he was 5 of 9 from 3. He had 9 rebounds that game. He had 3 steals. I do think that Lu Dort, despite Shai going for 32 points and 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, every night Shai's probably, more than likely the best player on the team. But Lu Dort, I think, really was a big difference maker. And, of course, what he did on defense as well. Fran VanVleet, that game, we know the last game he scored 38 points against the Thunder. This game he scored 8 points. He was 1 of 11 from 3. Jalen Green only scored 12 points. He was 1 of 8 from 3. I think that Lu Dort was a big, big difference maker. And again, man, the fact that he's shooting as well as he's shooting with mallet finger and his ring finger and his pinky finger taped together, I don't know how he's doing it, quite honestly. But he's still shooting. He's finding a way to shoot well still while playing through mallet finger. So really impressive from Lu Dort. I think Lu Dort's play this entire season has kind of been one of the more underrated storylines for the Thunder. The fact that he's kept up his 40% shooting that we saw last year is carried over to this season. And his defense, I think, is getting even more attention this season. I think that he's legitimately going to be first team all defense. I know we've talked before, every Thunder fan has talked about how Lu Dort has been passed over for all defensive teams and should at least have been on some, second all defensive teams. I think this year he's tracking to be on first team all defense.
Yeah, Dort's really been incredible. And also, I think just as an indication of the kind of player he is, there were multiple times he was on the floor making plays just by laying out his body to tip the ball to a teammate or something like that. I mean, he was kind of everywhere. And then when he's shooting that way, his impact on the game is really enormous.
Yeah, and that game, wasn't that the Superman dive game?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Oh, man. I thought that was the play of the game where he dove on the ball, pass the ball ahead, Casey Wallace, fast break, dunk. And that came in a point where the game was still close. I think that was a big momentum swing. And I think like that kind of play, that kind of hustle, that kind of energy is infectious to the rest of the team. Yeah, that was my favorite play of that game.
Well, I want to talk about free throws just a bit. The Thunder had 32 free throws to just 25 for Houston. How do you think the team won the free throw battle this time?
I don't know. I don't know how there's any rhyme or reason for the Thunder's free throw disparity and rate this season. Look, I know that I guess I would say this. They finally played a team that plays as physical and handsy as they do. The Thunder usually are by far the more physical team, and they play defense at such a high level. So I understand, foul calls on the Thunder. It's usually on the other end. It's like, but the Thunder aren't getting the free throws on the other end. And this game, we finally saw that reversed. And the Rockets, they do play, a physical brand of handsy basketball as well. So maybe that explains it. Maybe it's as simple as that. I don't know. Maybe it's because the Rockets don't have an Anthony Davis or a Giannis or a Joel Embiid that draws, a ton of free throws, except for when they played that previous time, and somehow Fred VanVleet shot like 14 free throws. He only shot 2 this game.
Another takeaway I had from the game is now we, again, have seen the Rockets 3 times. It seems like Oklahoma City really does match up really well for them. And in a 7-game series, it's really hard to see that the Rockets could match up and take Oklahoma City out over a series. In the 3 games they played, it really was only Fred VanVleet losing his mind, which isn't going to happen 7 times or 4 times in a series, which, if we're talking about potential playoff scenarios and who the team might match up really well against, I think this is a really positive sign. They've done so well against the Rockets.
Yeah, so in the 2 other games, the Thunder beat them by more than 15 points. And so, with this game, the final was 111-96, so exactly 15 or more in 2 of those games. And like you said, that outlier Fred VanVleet game where he went off and it took a Dylan Brooks banked shot in the closing moments. It took a Fred VanVleet 40-foot hand in his face shot at the buzzer to eke out a 2-point win over the Thunder. So, yeah, the Thunder, ultimately, the Rockets are a fun story. They've been impressive. The fact that they've, turned their team around over the last couple seasons and went from, the bottom worst team in the league for a couple years running to what they are now. I think they're a legitimate. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. I could see them tumbling down the standings some. They just don't have the offense ultimately. I think they play great defense. I think they play with a lot of heart and hustle. There's just not a lot of consistency. There's not a lot of guys that can go out and get 25 a game every game on this team. And if the Thunder were to match up in a playoff series with the Rockets, I would expect the Thunder to win it in like 5 games. I just don't see a way where the Rockets, could win a series against the Thunder.
Well, and that game felt really good, right? The Thunder got their 20th win of the season with that victory that launched them into the Cup championship. 20 wins a few years ago for this team was kind of almost like their ceiling. They're a 20, 25, 30 win team, and already hitting at this mark, one of the top teams against one of the better teams in the West. Ran them out of the building in the second half. Everything was really, really good. They're making this run in the Cup. I would say, spirits really high. Everybody was in a really good mood in Thunder Nation, and it kind of spilled over to different things that happened both in the game and outside of the game. So 2 kind of asides I want to mention that I thought were really fun. So if you're listening and you missed the game, you missed these really fun moments. First one is after Dort hit his 4th 3 in the second half, he flashed his standard sign with 3 fingers using his thumb, index, and middle finger. I guess the refs thought he was making some kind of inappropriate gesture, maybe a gun signal or something. So they tagged him with a technical. That technical was later rescinded, but even in the moment, Dort was laughing about that. I thought that was a pretty fun moment. And then the second one that spread all across social media was the post-game interview. And I think it was J-Dub who was having a little bit too much fun distracting Shea during his post-game interview. So Shea turned around and tells him to shut up, literally the word shut up, and The team started ribbing Shea about his salty language there, being on live TV, and even Lisa Salters got in on the fun. Do you think Draymond saw that moment, all the fun the team was having, grabbed his TV off the wall and threw it right out the window?
But yeah, that drives him crazy, right? Like, you just cannot stand seeing this Thunder team having so much fun and on top of it winning. Like, how can both things be true? How can you have fun with your teammates and bark and laugh and win at the same time? This Thunder team, I think it's endearing. I think it's fun. I like watching it, and they're still incredibly competitive. I think you can do both. I think they're proving this to be true, and let them have their fun. I thought it was hilarious. Of all those things, Shea feeling so bad about saying "shut up" to J-Dub, his reaction to their reaction, realizing he messed up, I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, the team dynamic is really fun. I mean, they're young and they're having fun. They've got their little pregame tradition with J-Dub and J-Well and Nick Gallo, and then they've got their postgame, everybody a part of the postgame interview tradition. Do you see the same in the locker room and in practice with how much fun the team really has together?
Oh yeah, behind the scenes, this team, they really, really enjoy each other. They really do have this much fun. They really do like each other. They are really this close and tight, and they cheer for each other. They want to see each other have success. They are really, really tight on and off the court, and I think that chemistry does help on the court. So it's not only are they incredibly talented, but they're a tight knit, group that's really easy to root for.
Well, now that we've talked about all the fun stuff and the happy stuff, we can move on to the not so fun part, which is the championship game last night. The Thunder started off really well. Midway through the first quarter, they had a 7-point lead, and even though the threes weren't falling, kind of everything else was. It looked like Oklahoma City could run away with things in this game, but they couldn't extend the lead. The Bucks crawled back, and importantly, Milwaukee could make threes when the Thunder could not. Milwaukee shot 7 of 18 from three in the first half, and Oklahoma City did even worse than they did against the Rockets. They shot 1 of 17. What went wrong?
I mean, I hate to make it seem as simple as like sometimes some teams get hot and some teams can't hit a shot, but that's really what it feels like. If you look at how how the Thunder defended the Bucks, they defended them pretty well. Like, the Bucks didn't score 100 points. They scored 97 points. I think if you would have told Thunder fans before the game, hey, you're going to, this Bucks team has been really hot. They've won 10 of their last 12. The Thunder are going to hold them to 97 points. You'd feel pretty good about that. And at halftime, you felt pretty good because even though the Thunder were down one, like you said, they hadn't shot well at all. And they were still playing. I think that the Thunder had outplayed them in every facet in the first half besides 3-point shooting. So you felt like, and they talked about this, on TV, Stephen A. and Perk and Malika and Bob Myers were saying, look, the Thunder outplaying the Bucks. They're just not hitting their 3-point shots. So this bodes well for the Thunder in the second half. I think that's how everybody kind of felt. In the second half, somehow, the Thunder just kept shooting really, really poorly, and then they didn't keep outplaying them in all the other facets, unfortunately. And I think that, I'm sure that you'll bring it up, so I won't spoil it, but I think that there was a big turning point. I think this was still a close game that could have gone either way, despite the Thunder's shooting woes, had it not been for this one particular turning point.
Well, why don't you tell us what that is?
Okay, I thought the turning point in the game was when... because it was like a 5 or 6 point game still. It was in the third quarter. There was a loose ball. Lou Dort jumps on the ball like he did against the Rockets. He jumps on the ball, and then Giannis jumps on top of Lou Dort, just jumps on top of his back, which, I mean, I think everybody watching, not only did he jump on top of his back, there was so much physical contact after that. There was no foul called. And they end up rewarding a jump ball. Lou Dort gets upset, justified. It was pretty clear that, it was his ball, and Giannis just flails on him. And so Lou Dort gets a tech. This one I don't think will be rescinded. Mark Daignault was upset that no foul was called and that Lou Dort got a tech. So he got a tech. So the Bucks get 2 tech free throws, hit them both, and the jump ball, they win it, and Damian Lillard hits a sidestep three. So it ends up being a 5-point possession. So I believe it was like a 6-point game that went to 11. And in a game where it was hard to get buckets for both teams at that point, that felt like a big, big momentum swing. And I think that the Thunder started kind of pressing a bit after that point, and the Bucks played a little bit looser. So I thought that was a big momentum swing. It really probably should have been Thunder ball because Lou had it, and then there was a foul, and they gave up 5 points on that possession. Little things like that, that Caruso three at the end of the first quarter that got waved off, that was like, I thought that he got it off, and you watch replay, it was like on the tippiest tip of his fingertips. So 3 points there, 5 points on that one possession, and things just kind of snowballed.
Yeah, and I don't know if you agree, but it maybe felt like some of the frustrations were building because the shots weren't falling. I mean, just like we've said many times on this podcast, they often get good looks, but shots aren't going in, and it really was bad against the Bucks. The game was kind of chippy. Hartenstein got himself a tick, I think rightfully so, doing the right thing to defend SGA when Andre Jackson, I think, kind of took a cheap shot at SGA on a play. You had Mark get a tech. Mark almost never gets technical fouls. So the emotions were kind of high in this game, and part of that, I assume, might have been the frustration of just not seeing the ball go in.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, the Thunder were really excited and really wanted to win this game. And, they kept it close. They were ahead, like you said, by 7 points in the first half. I think that there was some frustration that started to build up because, shots aren't falling, which is understandable. Like, this team led the NBA in 3-point percentage last season, and obviously that hasn't stayed the same this season. It's dropped off a bit. But nights like last night are very rare where you're going to shoot 5 of 32. Even if you're not, leading the league in 3-point percentage, every team's shooting better than 5 of 32 on the season. That's 15.6%. And this Thunder team for sure shoots better than that. Ultimately, like Isaiah Joe was 1 of 6 from 3. Jada was 1 of 4. Lou Dort, who we just mentioned, was 5 of 9 against the Rockets, was 0 for 4. Kenrich Williams was 1 for 4. Alex Caruso was 0 for 2. AJ Mitchell 0 for 2. Shea 2 for 9. So it was just a rough night from 3-point range. A few of those go in. Maybe this is a different ball game, but and look, the Bucks are built a little bit differently defensively than most teams that the Thunder face, whereas Giannis, he's such a great defender, especially around the rim, and then Brook Lopez is a great rim protector. And without Chet Holmgren particularly, they don't have somebody to pull one of those bigs out to defend Chet. Like, you've got to play Hartenstein for the difference that he brings. But when you play Hartenstein, they're not worried about him as far as 3-point shooting, so they can pack the paint a little bit more, and that's where Shea wants to score. So they're kind of building a wall at the rim and forcing the Thunder to beat them from 3-point range. And a lot of nights the Thunder will beat them from 3-point range, but then there's some nights where you go 5 of 32.
And I can say for myself, as an absolutely abysmal 3-point shooter, when I play basketball, it does really mess with your mentality if you just see miss after miss after miss after miss, even when you feel like you're doing the right things to make the shot go in. And the opposite effect can happen. When you start to see the ball go in, it can kind of snowball in your favor. It feels like that's what happened to Milwaukee. While on the flip side, Oklahoma City was just seeing a bunch of bricks get put up. And as I watched the second half unfold and as things started to spiral, it started to get into this cycle where OKC would take the ball down, they'd put up a shot, it'd be a miss, Milwaukee would lock down the boards, and so there was one and done. They go down, and they get themselves an open three, and they were hitting almost everything. They were 46% from three in the second half, and that's, the game just immediately kind of started to get away from them. I think there was that turning point. But that cycle of miss, Bucks rebound, Bucks three on the other end really just took this game from a potential comeback to, Mark waving the white flag in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of those, you look at the shot selection, I still think that the process for the Thunder was was pretty solid. Like, I mean, there was some forced shots and there were some rush shots and there was some early in the shot clock and those kind of things. But when you're down by double digits, you're going to press a little bit. But for the most part, I think the Thunder took good shots, good 3-point shots. They didn't fall. And you don't want the analysis to be like, hey, they just got hot, man. But the Bucks really did get out. Like, they hit some deep contested threes. Dame's going to hit some of those. Dame hit some. Brook Lopez hit a couple. Dame had that step back in the corner three defended that he hit. Like, the Bucks hit some tough shots. What's funny is the Thunder actually defended them well from 2-point range. Like, inside the arc, they actually shot worse than from behind the arc. So they shot worse from 2 than they did from 3. The Thunder defense, I think, still showed up. It sounds funny because, they lose by double digits, but it's just really because the offense wasn't there. I think the defense was still there. Obviously, Giannis was dominant, but he scored below his season average. He had 26 points on 10 of 19 shooting. You'll take that. You'll live with that. Dame had 23. He was 6 of 12. He was 5 of 10 from 3, which obviously was really, really big. And then, they had a couple of role players off the bench. Gary Trent Jr. was 3 of 6 from 3. AJ Green was 3 of 5 from 3. So I don't want to boil it down to the Bucks hit their threes and the Thunder didn't, but that was kind of a lot of what this game was.
Yeah, and you kind of addressed my next question because I was going to talk about the defense overall, how the team defended Giannis and Dame. Giannis had a triple-double, 26, 19, and 10. The Thunder used a bunch of different guys to guard him. There was J-Dub guarding him at times, Hart, Caruso. And ultimately, I think they did an okay job. And on Damian Lillard, they kind of reduced him to being a shooter. He wasn't burning the team off the bounce, and if not for 5 of 10 shooting, I think his stat line might look very different. So I tend to agree. I think Oklahoma City's defense was fine. They missed a ton of shots, and they weren't creating turnovers at the kind of rate they need to create kind of the open transition pace that they had against the Rockets in the second half. And Milwaukee was hitting their threes.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, there's been a lot of reaction to this game and a lot of I don't want to say panic, but, a lot of obviously upset fans about how this game went down. And I get it. You're excited about an NBA Cup championship and you lose by double digits. But sometimes just the shots aren't falling and the other team is hitting shots. And because that's, beyond what the Thunder, here's what the Thunder can control. They can control their effort. I thought the effort was there. I thought the energy was there. And defense, those things you can control. And I thought the Thunder brought those things. So I think they wanted this game. I think they took this game seriously. So obviously disappointed in the result, but I wasn't disappointed personally in the effort. I guess that's what I should say, in the brand of basketball that they played.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And I understand the frustration, especially because the Bucks have been playing a lot better as of late. And this can be somewhat of a measuring stick game as you look ahead to the playoffs and the kind of game that might get played in the playoffs. And you play 7-game series in the playoffs for a reason, right? You can have a game like this that's an outlier as far as your shooting performance, and it doesn't mean you lose the series. In the NBA Cup, it's one and done, and this one resulted in a loss. So I get the frustration, but I also think everybody should kind of take a step back out from the ledge. First, it doesn't count. And then second, the team can learn some things about itself. And then third, it wasn't the just terrible performance that everybody, I think, is chalking it up to be, because a lot of things did go right. Just the points didn't go right, which I know is the most important part of the game. But at least there's some positive takeaways. And I'm not ready to jump ship and think this team's got problems for the playoffs.
Yeah, ultimately, this Thunder team, like you said in the beginning, is still on a 5-game win streak, and they still beat the Mavs and the Rockets, 2 teams also in the top 4 of the West right now, and they beat them convincingly, hands down. And if they were to play the Bucks in the playoffs, well, that means that they made the finals. So that would be a great result, and you just kind of worry about that bridge when you get to it, as far as facing Giannis and the Bucks. And here's the deal. like I kind of mentioned before, the Bucks defense would change a lot if Chet Holmgren is healthy and playing. If the Thunder were to meet the Bucks in the finals, because all of a sudden you can't, put Giannis and Lopez, down low and let them protect the rim. Chet is going to draw a big out, and that would be a big difference maker for this Thunder team and how much room Shea and Dub would have to drive to the rim. So a healthy Chet would be a big difference maker against this team.
But I will concede it was disappointing that the team
For sure.
lost. I think it would have been really cool to see the Thunder hoist the cup up. You saw how the Bucks got to celebrate the win. Really wanted them to win it for Jay Will. That would have been a really fun story to tell. But, you move on, you get back into the games that really mean something, and that starts tomorrow against the Magic. But before we get ahead to those games, I wanted to briefly talk about Isaiah Joe. Joe has been pretty inconsistent this year, I think. He had two really nice back-to-back games against Utah and Toronto, but then against Houston and then Milwaukee, he was essentially a non-factor, even despite playing 18, 19 minutes per game. He threw up a big zero spot against Houston on December 1, just 3 against the Lakers at the end of November. So he had a really solid year last year. I kind of thought Joe might kind of take that next step up and really be a regular contributor. He's getting regular minutes. He's starting some of the games. But lately, especially, it seems like his performance is hit or miss, hot and cold. What do you think?
Yeah, he's been more up and down this season than he's been in previous seasons. And, last season he shot 41.6% from three, averaged 8.2 points per game. The season before that, it was 40.9% from three and 9.5 points per game. This season it's 38% and 8.9 points per game. So his points per game are kind of right there with his Thunder averages. But the 38% from three, it's funny to say 38% from three is inconsistent and a little disappointing, but that's just kind of the bar that Isaiah Joe has set for himself because he's been a 41, 42% three-point guy. And honestly, him bumping that up 4% would be a big difference maker for this Thunder team because the volume that he shoots three-pointers at. I still expect him to hit those marks. I still expect him to end up being a 40% three-point shooter just because that's what we've seen from him over the previous two seasons on a, 73-game and 78-game sample size. So we're still working with a 23-game sample size right now, so I expect that to go up. Isaiah Joe is still the great shooter. He was. But he has been, more up and down this season so far than he has been in previous seasons for sure.
Yeah, and you brought up his averages, and I think his averages, they look fine. And, even if he's stuck around 38, 39% from three, that's not a bad result. It's really just been that inconsistency where he will score 0 3 points, and then to kind of meet his average or progress to the mean, you'll have a really good game where he'll shoot 5 of 7 from three and he'll score a bunch of points. And I think what the team could really use from Joe, and hopefully he can find his footing as we get closer to the playoffs, is consistency, hitting 2, 3, 4 threes a game, and not having these games where he shoots 1 of 6 from three or 0 of 5 from three.
Yeah, I agree, especially if they're going to find themselves in some close games. The Thunder have won so many games by double digits. They haven't had a lot of kind of clutch time games this season. Even this game, they ended up losing by double digits. So we didn't see a close, tight game down the stretch. I do agree that, usually we'll see him be more consistent and not be so up and down, go 4 or 5 from three one game and then 1 of 7 from three the next game. If he can bring that consistency where he's hitting a few per game, that's a big difference for this team as well.
Let's look ahead to the next 3 games. Tomorrow, the team travels to Orlando to play the Magic. Orlando has struggled a bit as of late. They've lost their last 2, lost 4 of their last 6. They are without Paolo, and they are without Wagner. So with those injuries, is this a game Oklahoma City should absolutely expect to win?
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be... Look, they had to travel from Las Vegas all the way to Florida, 2,000 miles, 3 time zones, only 1 day rest. But I've heard some, will there be some NBA Cup, hangover? I don't think so. I think it's tough to play 3 games in 4 nights no matter what with that type of travel. I think that's rough. I think the back-to-back on the road is rough. But for the Magic game in particular, without Paulo and without Franz Wagner, I think the Thunder, especially coming off a loss and wanting to get that loss, that bad taste out of their mouth, and especially the fact that they're due to hit some threes, I expect the Thunder to go into Orlando and win that game.
So the second half of that back-to-back that you mentioned is Miami. The Heat have been solid, and they have some nice wins. They've beaten the Cavs, they've beaten the Suns, Lakers, Mavericks, T-Wolves. What are your thoughts on this one?
The Heat are so unpredictable because, like you said, they've beaten all those teams, but then they'll lose some inexplicable games as well. They are, very up and down and inconsistent this season, but ultimately they're 13-11. But in the East, which is like 11-13 in the West, so I think it's tough from the standpoint that it's on the road and it's the third game in 4 nights and it's the second night of a road back-to-back after traveling 2,000 miles. So, assuming that Jimmy Butler isn't traded by then, I think that's a tough game that could go either way. I expect the Thunder to win that Orlando game. I think that Heat game will be a tough one that could go, either way, coin flip game.
And you mentioned Jimmy Butler, maybe even with the team or not with the team. The trade rumors have been swirling. What do you think the Heat should do, and where do you see Butler's most likely landing spot?
Yeah, I think given the fact that I don't think that this current iteration of the Heat are a contender, and the fact that Jimmy Butler is older and he very apparently wants out and apparently is making it vocal, I think they probably should trade him. And if I were them, I would follow the Sam Presti model and trade my aging superstar to a contender for draft picks and young assets. I've seen the Warriors, I've seen the Suns. I don't know that the Suns make any sense because what young player are they going to get from the Suns? They're not going to. And you don't want Bradley Beal. You don't want that contract. That's a negative, and I don't think the Suns have the draft capital to make it worth it. So the Suns don't make any sense to me. The Warriors can make a little bit more sense if you can get Jonathan Kuminga, if you think that, if you still believe in pods, maybe Moses Moody. But I would think that Kuminga would be the big get from them, and then draft picks. And then the Rockets actually make a lot of sense. The Rockets say they're not interested in making a big splash trade this season. They've come out and said that. Stone did. But who knows if that's true. The Rockets have plenty of young players that the Heat could get, and obviously a bunch of draft picks as well. So if I were them, I would look at the Rockets to make a trade. Hopefully that doesn't happen, though, as, if you're a Thunder fan.
Well, while we're talking about the Heat, is it weird that I forget that Kevin Love is still playing in the NBA? I don't know why. I mean, Chris Paul's been playing longer. LeBron James is in his 22nd season, but Kevin Love still kind of surprises me that he's had the length of career that he has had.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He was in the same draft class as Russell Westbrook, and he dealt with those injuries, and then he just doesn't get the social media buzz for being like an old guy still playing that the other guys do, like you mentioned. He's 36 years old. He's actually having, like, when he plays, he's only putting up 6.4 points, 4.7 rebounds. He's not having a great season by any means, but he's a part of the rotation. And, he plays in the minutes that he plays just fine. I think is a decent, role player off the bench at this stage of his career. It is just kind of wild, though, that he's just kind of been a forgotten man when he was like a perennial all-star for several years and a big name.
Yeah, I guess that is a good indication of his staying power to still continue the little things and contribute in limited minutes, because it's how you can carve out a long career, or you can be like Russell and try to reimagine yourself with every new team since you've left the Thunder. So the team returns home on Monday to play the Washington Wizards. To say it the best way I can, Washington is absolutely the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah,
let me let me stretch your brain here, okay? I'm going to put you on the spot and make things hard for you. How could the Wizards beat the Thunder?
Oh man, there's been a lot of illness going around. Like we've seen, the flu hit a bunch of locker rooms. If the flu hit the Thunder's locker room and they all came down with pneumonia or something like that, I could see the Wizards winning. Like if the Thunder had to play, if their starters had to be Dylan Jones and Alex Dukas and Brandon Carlson, I could see the Wizards maybe winning that one.
They have their work cut out for them, but I guess, the Oklahoma City matchup predictor gives them a 9.2% chance to win. So those are pretty good numbers. I'm kind of surprised it's that high.
I'm a little surprised it's that high as well, quite honestly. I mean, this is the best team in the West versus, like you said, the worst team in the NBA. The Wizards do have some fun players, though. Like Bilal Coulibaly, he's turned out to be a fun player. Look, I mean, obviously the Wizards are going through it right now. But at least now they kind of have a path. I think Bub Carrington, he's a rookie. He's a fun player. Keyshawn George, a rookie. He's a fun player. Obviously, Alex Sarr, Olivia's younger brother. They just don't really have – they don't have a superstar, first of all. And they have a lot of young potential talent that's not realized right now. Then you have some role players like Kyle Kuzma, Valanciunas, Jordan Poole. You never know what you're going to get from Jordan Poole any given night. So they're not a good team. But, hey, they're trying to change things around and rebuild. So – we'll just let them be.
Yeah, and I guess I shouldn't go so far as to disparage the Wizards because it is the NBA. Anything could happen, and the Thunder could shoot 44 from three. We've seen the team get pretty close to that, and all bets are off at the shootings like that.
Yes, or if a bug goes through the locker room
That's right.
and they all they all have tummy issues for a day or two.
Well, the last thing I want to talk about is Alex Caruso, who becomes extension eligible on Saturday on the 21st. What do you think the team should do there? What kind of contract do you see him getting?
Yeah, I think he's going to get the 4 years, $80 million. I think that's, what he's in line to get. I think that's what he has earned. I think that's what this team sees Alex Caruso as a long-term piece. I know he's struggled offensively. By the way, speaking of all the shooting woes, like Caruso's three that was waved off, which I just it didn't seem like there was conclusive evidence enough to even wave it off. I felt like it was one of those, like, whatever's called on the court should stand. It was that close. And then he also had another three that bounced on the rim like 6 times and then fell off. So he could have had 2 threes that would have like doubled the Thunder's 3-point output against the Bucks. Anyways, all that to say, I know he struggled from 3-point range this season. But I also know that for his career, he's a very good 3-point shooter. And then the defense has been obvious. He causes chaos. I think that he can be an X factor for this team in the playoffs. I think that he will be worth the extension that the Thunder are going to give him.
And I know we're running long. I did just remember something else I wanted to get your take on, and that is the new NBA All-Star format, a format that Kevin Durant has already come out strongly against. He says he hates it.
Yeah.
For those who aren't yet up to date, it is very, very different. There's going to be a mini tournament with 4 teams played in 3 games. You've got 3 teams of your typical 24 All-Stars that are going to be divided up. I think the is it the TNT analysts are the ones that are actually deciding who's on what team?
Yeah, it's going to be Chuck, Shaq, Kenny, and Candace Parker.
Yeah. And then you have the 4th team coming from the championship game of the Rising Stars Challenge. What do you think of this format? Are they trying too hard?
I disagree with Katie. I like it. I think it's fun.
All
Look,
right.
the All-Star game was broken. We all love watching the All-Star game because of, we grew up with it. We watched, MJ and Kobe. We watched Magic. Maybe you're too young for that and you watch, LeBron and Kobe or whatever it was. But the All-Star game has changed. They just refuse to play defense. I don't like games that, flirt with 200 points for each team. So I like this because I think it'll be more competitive. I think that the teams will try harder in this new style. And, when you make the team smaller and make it like a tournament style, I don't know. I think that the competitive juices will go up. And I think it's fun and different. And I think it'll give a reason to watch and see if maybe it's fixed at least. Because right now we know it's broken. This way, at least, maybe it fixes it. It can't hurt it. It can't make it worse, I think.
Yeah, and the scoring format is different, which I think will maybe improve the quality of the basketball that's being played because it's the first to 40. And so there is more incentive to play defense in that environment. And my hope is that the Thunder have 2 All-Stars. And wouldn't it be fun maybe if you've got Shea on one team and J-Dub on another and they're matched up somehow in this tournament?
Yeah, I would love that. I think that would be a lot of fun. And I think that you hit the nail on the head with the 40-point scoring format. I think that is probably the biggest game changer. Obviously, it's going to look so much different having this, having 4 teams. But I think going to 40 absolutely incentivizes playing defense and locking down on defense and actually trying on that end. So I love it. I think it'll be fun. And I'm usually like kind of more of a traditionalist, like a purist, like what are they doing to the game I loved? Why are you making all these changes? So the fact that I like it, I just think it's a cool change. I was ready to see the All-Star game change in some sort of way. I just knew that it was broken.
Yep, I totally agree with that, and I guess we'll see how it plays out during the All-Star break. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, host of the podcast. He's Brandon Rabar, Daily Thunder beat writer. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure to subscribe to the Daily Thunder podcast on your favorite podcast app so you get an alert when we have a future episode. And if you like what you're hearing, do us a favor, leave us a rating or review wherever you get your podcast. And we'll be back in your feed soon.